Okay, welcome. It is 1:02 p.m. We are going to call this meeting to order. This is the Bylaws and Resolutions Advisory Committee meeting. It is December 8th of 2023, our last meeting for this year. We are having a hybrid meeting where some of us are here in person and others are joining us virtually. We do have quorum because I do have 3 of the 4 committee members present. Pam is running a little late, so I'll introduce myself to you. My name is Laura Pangrat, and I am the chairperson of this committee. We are having a holiday-themed meeting to make our topics of bylaws and resolutions as fun and exciting as possibly can for anyone who watches this video later. So would the rest of my committee members please introduce themselves?
Keith Kaiser, lowly committee member.
Augie?
August Flengy. I feel like I should go sit in front of our Christmas tree.
Whatever finds the spirit for you. That is, we need one in here. Don't we need? Next year I'll bring up my own little mini one for you. How's that? And then we do have our other committee member, Pam, might be running a little bit late today. She's supposed to show up later. We do have some guests here, or before I get to the guests, our board liaison. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Steve Jacobs, board liaison.
Thank you. And then we do have 2 guests. Would you introduce yourselves?
Jim Trummel, association member for 21 plus years.
Thank you.
Bob Hilligus, association member for about property owner for 25, lived here for 23.
Thank you both for being here. Let's see, now for my committee members, as I said, we do have quorum. Are you all okay to continue with the recording of this meeting?
Yes.
Thank
Yes.
you very much. Thank you. We did our introductions. Yes, here is the agenda in front of you. You were also emailed this as well. So is there anything that you would like to add to my poor small little agenda? Kind of like the
There's a
Grinch.
full agenda.
Yes, it started out very small, and then it became like the Grinch's heart when it grew 3 times this large. So, as you can see, is it moving? Not moving on the screen. It's not shifting up. I can't get it to shift up. Well, those of you who got the electronic copy or have the hard copy in front of you, is there anything on the agenda that you would like to add or?
I'm good.
Okay, so hearing no changes to the agenda, we will consider the agenda approved. All right, let me see if this is going to work. You know what? I'm going to have to. I think I have to. Let me switch. Stop sharing for a minute. I'm going to reshare.
Okay. Good thing we got sweaters. Yeah.
As long as you don't stop the recording, then we're okay.
So temperature.
Yeah.
But Jim has his sweatshirt on. No Jim's shirt.
It's on air conditioning 63.
Trying to figure out.
Hi. Hey, Pam.
Hi, Pam.
Can I sit next to you? Is anybody sitting there?
That's you.
No, thank you. The meeting has begun.
Okay.
I'm in the process of trying to figure out why it's not sharing.
You want
I read
chocolate
it
or
again.
yellow?
I'm sorry, yeah.
You want chocolate or yellow cake? This is yellow cake. These are chocolate.
Yellow cake or chocolate cake?
Oh,
That's the
I'll
only
take
difference.
chocolate because my husband loves chocolate. Thank you. Yellow cake or chocolate, that's an interesting,
And
He's a valued member of the Eagle.
I know,
a festive nap.
thank you. I know. He's very funny. He's very passive aggressive.
What's wrong?
He doesn't understand why it takes me forever to figure out what we're doing in the bylaws committee.
This computer is moving slow today. I don't know what it's doing.
I will say, the way those two committees operate is quite different.
Oh,
There it goes.
that's, I believe you because he thinks I'm nuts.
Okay. Let's see if I'll give it a minute to see if it will switch to the minutes. Those of you who received the minutes electronically, please have a look and let me know if there's anything that needs to be changed on there. Why it's so slow moving today. Switch, like I can see it on my computer that it switched documents, but it won't switch.
You have to ask Keith, he's a computer expert.
What are you trying to do?
I'm trying to just put the minutes up so that we can approve them, but it won't move.
Well, it seems like your cursor.
It's like it's stuck.
Is it stuck up? Is it stuck on your computer or is it stuck here?
It's stuck on that one.
But down there, you can go and select
Yeah.
the document.
Yeah,
And you're
so I
waiting
don't
for
know
this?
if I'm sharing it wrong this time or not, but,
Let's see what you're trying to do here.
This doesn't help for the recording, but for my purposes, I can bring up these documents on my computer as I'm participating.
okay.
Well, now the cursor's
What
moving.
happens if you
This is me.
you've got it, so, all right, so it's still on mine, okay.
So you, up at the top, it says take control. You've taken control of the presentation, right?
Oh,
Right here,
Right up there
top left.
at the very top.
Oh, okay. No, yeah, I don't see that, where's that?
You're just on the very,
I don't
very
see
top
that
of
on
the.
mine. Where am I looking at?
Oh, you're missing the top,
Yeah, so maybe should let me stop sharing for a minute and see what pops up. See, it doesn't, so click on share. Which one am I supposed to click on? I would do either
Content
presenter or
only.
this one. But if I do this one, it goes to the black screen there. Do I need to have my camera on the one?
try this here where it says. That's share. Yeah, her screen looks different. Go back to the share button.
Because if I put, yeah, see there, we don't need that. That's why I always turn the camera off, but it would share. So what do you want me to do?
Share button. Click on that little thing right there.
Mhm. You thinking?
Is that already selected? Okay, now go over to here and click on that.
How do I pick that one?
No, scroll down to,
Because this one should be the one that had all my PDFs and stuff. That's just a Word. doc.
Okay,
They don't
then
need
click on that.
one, so I think I need this one.
presenting. Okay,
It's just moving slow today.
and then which document were you trying to pull up?
I was trying to have this one up because this is the minutes that from the last meeting.
Oh, no, it's just taking a minute to load.
Tanker. Don't ruin my holiday spirit, Mr. Computer.
Heck.
Is that wireless or
We're
you
gonna
plugged
just
in?
keep talking through it then until, see, it's finally. It's like it's delayed, so, all right, we're gonna keep going just to see if we can do this. Those of you who have your, the document in front of you, is there anything that, did anyone find anything that needs to be updated or corrected, typographically? Or anything like that on the minutes for August?
I didn't when I reviewed it as I'm not seeing it here. It was attached to the email, wasn't it? Or it came from Augie. That's what it was.
I think it looks good.
Okay. Well, you would. All right, so here are no corrections or amendments. We will take the minutes from the November 10th meeting as approved. So Augie, if you'll just do me that favor of how you combine and add the
Yep.
governance document to it, and then email me that, I can send that to the office to get them to post it on the website for us.
We'll send it.
Okay, thank you. I don't know why my computer is being temporary. I'm not even bringing up any of my documents now. Just my thing there. All right, so moving on. Now is the time in the meeting that we open the floor for public comments for our guests. Jim or Bob, do either of you have any public comments right now?
I have nothing.
Laura, I could not tell from what was displayed on the agenda as to whether or not the M04 first reading at the board meeting is up for consideration.
Yes, it's under new business.
Okay, I would like to make a comment on it, and I think it would be best in the public comments.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, and I'm not intent on initiating a discussion at this point in time. That can wait later. This is just my comment in advance. The M04 resolution pertains to the overgrown grass or weeds restriction in the declaration of restrictions. M04 and a 1996 predecessor resolution to M04 were written to be exceptions to the whatever existing violation process there was at the time going forward from 1996 until today. They were intended to take that particular restriction out of the violation process. And in so doing, they granted an advance authority to the general manager to go out and correct those violations and charge the owner for the cost of cutting the grass, to simplify it. The red line draft that was in the meeting removes that authorization from M04 and then inserts a 2/3 requirement for the board to approve such action, which is part of the declaration of restrictions for what I'll call is unsatisfactory maintenance of the property, and that would be structural as well as shrubs, grass, and so on. However, the first reading topic that accompanies the red line does a more clear job of indicating what is intended than you get if you just simply read the clean copy of the draft proposal. It indicates, and I'll reach around here and get the copy of it. Now I'm going to paraphrase. It indicates that the document is being revised to come into compliance with the 111.10 HOA Act involving regarding violations. And in particular, it refers to what amounts to the first notice and second notice being relevant to the revision or proposed revision of M04. And it goes on to say that the revision to M04 is made to bring it into alignment with the recently amended M01, which brings in the 111.10 process into the violation process of Ocean Pines Association through M01. Rescinding M04 accomplishes that purpose. I think it is much more appropriate and advisable to simply revise M04 in a manner that's not really clear as to what's being done. Yeah, it takes away the pre-authorization to the general manager and inserts a 2/3 majority vote. But that doesn't completely, it doesn't really explain what's being done. What's being done is to take the what was previously considered independent outside the violation process. It takes it into fully M01. And I don't see any purpose in having a resolution that's really kind of vague the way the proposed amendment reads. My recommendation or my suggestion to the committee, let me rephrase that, is that when you come to the consideration of M04 in the agenda, that you consider whether or not recommending that it be rescinded, not simply revised. That's the only comment I have.
Jim, are you saying that if it's rescinded, then the yard issues can just be handled with M01?
That's what I would say would happen, yes.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jim.
Okay.
Anybody need any clarification or comments to
Well, we'll talk about it.
when we get down?
Yeah,
to
that
those?
was just public comments.
Right.
Yeah, I can add more if necessary.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Bob, you said you didn't have any public comments at this moment. So next item up on the agenda is the chairperson's report. Which, of course, my screen's still not working right. I don't know what it's doing, but I'll go ahead and verbally tell it.
Did you try resharing again? Because LC popped up in the center screen there, like you're back on mine.
Yeah. The only other option I got is
More.
which one? Say again?
No, it's got to do with her connect. The connection's just really slow for some reason. See, that's plugged in. This is wireless.
Here, I did find a good control button. I gotta hover over that top thing, but I can't get it.
Even when I tried to select it over there, it was good.
to-
I can try to do it over here, but I got to take back control from you to where we pull up a certain document.
I'm gonna try that, see if that'll work. Right, so I'm gonna stop sharing. And then, because if you can, I don't know if you could see.
You can't, because I don't have your document.
Oh, wait, so then, all right, so let me try.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
AI is taking over.
The always used to tell you was get out and get back in again.
My husband hasn't learned that, and I must
Do you
have
want
said
me
it
to
a
try
thousand
that? Do you want
times.
me to leave and then come back in, rejoin it? You put me back in?
You want me to kick you out?
Fine, get rid of the chairperson.
when I was working at corporate America,
Okay, so I
IT would
left.
come up
All
and
right,
say,
let me see if I can
reboot
reach
your
him.
Yeah.
computer. And I would say, I've already done that. And they would say, do it again. And darned if the second time it didn't work.
I got it with the left boot and the right boot. Sometimes it's still good.
So John,
All right, got it. Okay, so now let me try resharing. See if it will behave.
There you go.
there you are.
That's right.
Good job.
We will see how long this lasts.
Sometimes it
So,
works.
okay. So chairperson's report is now visible up there. So the tasks I completed is I did attend in person the November directors meeting on November 18th. I did email Michelle Ross to add our approved minutes from our October meeting to the website, which has been done. I emailed, and I forgot to do that then, I guess. I emailed the committees that we had, all the C resolutions, that we had emailed like, what, a month and a half ago or 2 months ago, and then only heard from like one or two of them.
Mhm.
And then, so I did that. I did attend, and I'll explain more when we get to it on our agenda, the Ocean Pines Work Group for the Spring Kickoff Expo. I attended the meetings held on November 8th and November 27th. So task to still complete our I'll email, no, I guess I was doing this late. I think I forgot to update some of this myself. So I've already done the annual report. We've already got, I think we've got that up there. I did email her about the agenda for today's meeting, so it should be up there on the website. And then obviously I've still got the future directors meetings to attend, and the next Ocean Pines Work Group Committee meeting is December 18th. Okay, so let me go back up, and it's scrolling, so that's a good sign. Yeah. Don't say it too loud, but so that is my report. Steve, does anybody have any questions for me? Okay. Steve, as board liaison, this is an opportunity. If you have anything that you want to update that we won't be talking about coming up.
The only, the only thing is, as I think everybody knows, we got an answer, and I forgot to print it out, so I'm going to misstate it, but we did get an answer from Budget and Finance as to how they view the need to proceed with the either unnumbered or improperly numbered F resolution dealing with fees.
Convenience fee, right?
And convenience fee, yeah. They sort of split the baby in half, I guess, the best way to describe it. On the one hand, they said that establishing the ability to use the fee was a policy decision. What that fee actually should be is an operations decision, which should be left to the general manager. And I think there was a series of emails, I think everybody saw them, where I had at least said that it now looked like Bylaws should draft the resolution. And Monica wrote back and said, yes, that's correct. I actually made that suggestion as we were discussing, just to finish up this resolution instead of having it hang there for the next several months, since Budget and Finance is going to be tied up in the budget process over the next 2 or 3 months. But if committee views that this is something that should be done by Budget and Finance, I'll go back and tell Monica that's, it's their baby and up to them to handle, but I did see a value just trying to get this issue done, put away, go to sleep, and be done with it. I don't think it's ever gonna come up again, to be honest with you, but,
Well, at least they responded.
yeah. I
That's,
mean,
but
I
it's
don't
taken a
know.
while for us to get their attention anyway, so at least there is a partial, resolution on this. We'll talk about more when we get down to it, but, I appreciate you helping with that.
It's not on there.
Is there anything else under the
No, that's.
board one? Okay. All right. So moving on to the unfinished business / status updates. I left the M06 on there, just, as a reminder that right now there is no action for our committee with that one. The convenience fee one that Steve just mentioned. We did get the response, from the Budget and Finance Committee. They do feel that it should become an actual F resolution. One of the things I wanted to double check, because I didn't have stuff in front of me, but the number that they suggested, 6, would that be the appropriate number for it? Like in our sequential numbers, because I can't,
I don't have a 5 on the list.
because 5 was that the one that there was an old F resolution in the book. If we looked, when Bob and I looked at the book months ago, there was an old F05. So if it were to ever be brought back, it would have to have a new number. So it would make more sense to call it this new convenience fee one F06 then, so that it doesn't take, even though the former F05 was rescinded, I believe. I don't remember the date.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
But, you know what I mean? Wouldn't that, Jim and Bob, would that be correct number wise? Like, if we're gonna suggest that Budget and Finance create the resolution format, we want to make sure that they put in the right number to begin with.
The question,
Go ahead, Bob.
the question I would have is if F05, or not F05, and 5 was retired, would we not still list it here as retired and what it was rather than
So
have it blank?
I just looked it up. F05 was abatement of annual charges. This resolution was rescinded by the board on March 28, 2015. So it should be on here
It should be listed as,
as rescinded
as,
because other
right,
resolutions are.
yes.
They're still on.
So,
F6 would be correct.
okay, so you'll be able to update that and add the
Jim may
F05
have
into
that.
our.
Yeah, I'll put F05 on here as rescinded.
And then Jim, and by the way, before, we will rescind the Roberts rules officially while we have discussions throughout the agenda, unless we need to vote on something, okay? So Jim, did you have a comment on the numbering part?
Yeah, what you've already decided is that when a resolution is rescinded, the number's not used again. I don't know that we've ever documented that, but that's the practice that should be adhered to.
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to make a comment. I know all these decisions have been made, but I consider them to be the wrong decision on creating an F series resolution on this topic. This belongs in one of the financial manuals that one of them was recently revised. It's never been posted anywhere. And I don't know what's going to happen to the other one, but this belongs in one of those financial documents, not in one of these resolutions in the book of resolutions. It simply is distorting the use of the book of resolutions. The book of resolutions goes to the governance of the association. And this is not a governance issue. The F05 that was rescinded, that's been discussed or mentioned now, was rescinded and should never have been in the book of resolutions to begin with, because it dealt with a topic that was outside of any governance issue. It had to do, as a matter of fact, the reason it was rescinded is it went beyond the governing documents requirement that all members are treated equally. And there was an unequal treatment in assessments as a result of F05. And again, I'm not going to keep standing up and trying to preach on this, but this is not the proper action to create an F6 for this rogue resolution.
I agree with you, Jim. I don't think it should be a resolution either.
Can I just
But
ask a
But
question?
it's not up to us.
Why is
right.
it in here in the first place if it's not supposed to be in here in the first place?
Because
That's a great question.
a couple years ago, somebody created a
It
document,
was
put
put
it
in
in the
without,
book, and we discovered it was in the book.
It's-
but
it's a
wasn't
policy
official. So that's
or
why we
procedure, but it's not a resolution.
Are you talking about all the F?
No, not all.
No,
of
we're
that,
talking
just
about
the
that particular
current
one.
If
The
here,
unnamed one.
if you look on here, so this is the online book of resolutions, right?
Yeah. I
See
have
that? See how they're F1, F2, F3?
Yeah, I've heard
See
that.
that one?
Yeah,
Has no F number?
right.
So I clicked on that. And I'm like, I wonder what this is.
Mhm.
And this is what came up. It's not a resolution. It hasn't gone through readings. It doesn't have the right signatures on it. So we, as the board said, as a
is
committee,
this?
said, what is this?
Because it's on the public website that any resident can go and look at. And we want to make sure that the documents that are posted for any of things, so the bylaws, the resolutions, whatever, is accurate and up to date and supposed to be there. So
And
we're,
that's actually part of our
Keith-
tasking
right.
is for us to give oversight of the book, to make sure that the book
so
has
Keith
got the right stuff.
noticed, right, that it wasn't correct, that there was no name for it, no F number, you know.
And the board decided to refer we sent the question to the board, what is this? The board sent the question to the Budget and Finance Committee, what is this? And so they've now decided after some period of time that they want to make it a resolution.
And you don't want to.
No,
Well,
Well, it's not our choice,
All right.
it's
but like Jim said, I don't think it's resolution material, but it's not up to us. So they need to convert it into a resolution. They need to send it to the board. It needs to go through a first and a second reading and if the board decides to make it a resolution, that's up to them. Only thing we can do is provide our input to say, we disagree with it being a resolution.
Yeah, it
But
should be.
ultimately, it's
But
not
if
up
it
to us.
becomes one, then we
Right.
have to make sure it's meets all the criteria, you know, has the right signatures, has the right number, all that stuff, and doesn't go against anything else in our bylaws and resolutions. So.
This committee's been around a long time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So why are we at so it would seem to me, if the committee's been around a long time, then these things would be answered. What happened?
I don't understand what you're saying.
Well,
because-
here's what I'm walking in the weeds because I'm saying, here are the F things. I have a copy of the document.
Go ahead.
And so you're talking to the one that has no number. Are the rest of the Fs okay?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's actually how it was discovered.
Okay.
Bob actually started this. He started going through each one when he was gonna turn the tracker over to me
Oh, okay.
to make sure that the tracker was accurate. So he literally went through every single one to make sure
The most
that
updated.
this was up to date.
Right.
I got it.
And then he sent that to me. So then I basically did the same thing. I went back through and double checked. And that's when we discovered this weird document in here
Okay.
that wasn't on the tracker, that nobody could explain. And you know
And you
what?
also have to remember,
But-
just
and-
because the committee has been in existence, the members have changed multiple times every couple of years, you
Well,
know, and including the directors,
The board.
you know.
I get that, but generally speaking, you don't have these kinds of knots in policies and procedures just because people change. There's always institutional
You
memory.
should,
You shouldn't.
you shouldn't is the question.
Totally agree.
But
Okay,
the-
all right, that's all I needed to know.
But
I
and
just
this
wasn't
is-
getting it.
To my knowledge, this is the first time this has come
Right.
up where
This is
somebody
the
just
first one
randomly
that-
stuck
this is the
something.
only one that I've been able to
Yeah.
find going through it.
Yeah,
Jim, is there any others that you know of?
No, I don't know of any others.
Yeah, this is the only wild one I found, and
This is not something that happens all the time.
Okay.
And
You
this is,
know?
But there-
But also you have to remember, when we share our thoughts on something to another committee, it's up to that committee to decide when they're gonna meet to discuss it and how.
I
So
read that.
someone on that end, we don't have control over that, on how fast it gets brought back to us so that we can clear it off
Yeah.
our to-do list. you know?
so I make a motion that we provide our advice back to that committee, that we don't think that it meets the requirements of a resolution to be in the book of resolutions, because it's not a governing document, and that it should be instead included in one of the financial manuals. I make a motion that we provide that recommendation.
Second. I think.
Is there any further discussion from Augie, our committee members, because Robert's rules is back in since we're making a motion and
So we
voting.
can move on.
Augie, do you have any thoughts you want noted with this?
I think Jim's thoughts are well taken.
Okay.
Can I just suggest a friendly amendment? Which would be, notwithstanding the opinion of the bylaws committee, the responsibility is to appropriately draft a resolution by budget and finance for board consideration. I mean, I think we're, from my point of view, and I admit I sort of stuck my foot in it, but I still have, I would still like, whatever ultimately happens, I'd like to put this puppy to sleep.
Right.
So, you know, I think
As
this.
part of our feedback, you mean?
Yeah, there's two steps that need to be taken. One is, our opinion is that this does not belong in the book of resolutions. But if the Budget and Finance Committee continues to advocate for that position, it's their responsibility to draft the resolution and bring it to the board for first and second reading.
And defend it,
But yeah,
and defend it if necessary.
well, that's up to them.
No, I mean to the board.
Yeah, but I mean,
Right,
I mean.
because if we were to draft it, and if we were to draft it for them and it went to the board, they potentially could come back to us to defend it. And then we'd be put in the awkward position of defending something we didn't support in the first
Right,
place.
right. But I
But well
But,
taken. It's too,
What I don't know,
go ahead.
on that point, what I don't understand is the document was already approved by the board, wasn't it, a long time ago? So just the question is it a resolution or is it some sub-resolution policy?
Well, if it was, they didn't use the correct document. A resolution document with the appropriate signatures at the bottom. So the people who would have to sign off on that and document,
So you'd have to do a do-over.
yeah, exactly.
See, here's the bottom of it. I've got it up there. You can tell it's not even in the correct format. It only has the president signing and the secretary, but there's nothing showing that it went through council, legal counsel,
Yeah,
or bylaws, or the general manager on
And
there.
it's subject to first and second reading.
yeah, we're
Right.
subject to the readings, right?
yeah, I agree with Steve's addition to our comments back. We include in there that if they do decide to continue
And-
with this as a resolution, then they'll need to draft it up and
Put it in the-
present it to the board.
Okay,
And are we leaving it on our tracker?
well, yes, until it's.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna leave it
Until
on
we
the
know-
tracker here. I'll,
Until we know which route they're going.
yeah, I'll
Sure.
just leave it. We've been tracking it.
I know, that's what's been the most confusing to me. Since the day I came in here, we've been talking about that particular policy and I'm like, where's the end
Because
of
there's,
this?
it's not resolved.
I agree.
And because it's in the book.
Thank you, Augie.
If it wasn't in the book, I'd delete it. But the problem is it's in the book.
Okay,
If you
okay.
go ask for the book of resolutions right now, you see it.
Looked at the hard copy. It's there.
Right.
That's the weird part. So
Okay, so
Okay.
we still have a motion on the floor. It's
That's
been
the missing piece.
seconded. For the committee, the four committee, members, Augie, Keith, Pam and I. All in favor of approving and supporting the motion that was made to,
as amended by Steve,
and amended by Steve to,
advise.
advise the bylaws, advise the
Finance.
budget and finance, committee about our, viewpoints that this does not belong in the book of resolutions. However, if they so choose to still pursue that, they will be responsible for putting it in the correct format and presenting it to the board of directors for the first and second readings. Correct? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
I,
I think he said aye.
He did.
Any opposed?
I muted I.
I saw your lips move on.
No, we can read lips from here. Okay, all right.
Two words.
I may ask, for a little bit of help,
I'll draft up the
You'll draft
words
up
if you
the-
want, and
yeah.
I'll email them
and
to you.
then, yeah, and that would be great. Thank you. Okay, so let me go back.
just let me say, I've sat on many bylaws committees. This is the most complicated I've ever seen.
Well,
Because we're never responsible, bylaws is never responsible for policies and procedures. And that's what you're talking about.
But that's why, when that comes up here, that is why it's our responsibility to say it really belongs in policy.
I was only commenting. I wasn't arguing it. I was only commenting.
Okay.
My experience is quite different from this committee.
Were the other committees you were on, were they responsible for the book of resolutions?
I never heard of that until I came to Ocean Pines.
Book of
I asked
resolutions?
for policies and procedures. They didn't know what I was talking about up there. And then finally I tripped over it in the academy. And I said, what is this? And then I couldn't find them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really convoluted from my experience. Bylaws are bylaws, but we also don't have to, the bylaws committees that I've been on, we didn't have to go to the state of Maryland, which in concert with the state of Maryland, which is a law. Like in the Nurses Association, your state level spoke to the national, but never anything like this. It's just a very different experience.
Yeah.
All right.
Now you know
Well,
why John thinks I'm nuts.
now everybody has experience with this format.
You're gonna have
So
to
moving
try
on.
experience, right?
It's a learning curve.
Right, moving on.
I used to tell my staff, we've got 6 months on a learning curve. I'm a year in and I'm still on a learning curve.
We have a
I
very
agree.
agenda.
I'm
Yeah.
also with you there.
Say it again, Augie. I'm sorry.
I'm also with Pam on that.
Thank you, Augie.
All right, so
Solidarity.
moving on. We still have our fifth, the one additional slot available for our committee.
Well, I'm sorry, before we move on,
Uh-huh.
the big write-up that Jim did
Mhm.
with all the concerns and recommendations, he put it in an email. Was that for M6 or was that for M1? You remember, Jim?
And one,
It was, okay, M1, all right.
I think it was.
Carry on.
Now, I mean, I do have the original charging document for the convenience fee one there. We do have that.
Well, we created that. That was us asking the board what's.
5%. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, I'm sorry, continue.
are we good?
Yeah, I'm good. My question's answered.
Okay, so, still looking for a fifth person to join us. Moving on, to C06 Communications. I did finally receive a reply from them, that, they have met, and as of, I believe it's November 16th, they, are recommending no changes be made to the resolution so that we consider it reviewed and left as is, and they'll have to review it in 2 years. Okay. I've not had a response from strategic planning yet. Environment and natural assets had replied originally, but I don't believe I have gotten an updated one saying whether or not they're recommending any changes to the resolution.
I have a new
So
chair.
I don't know when if they've met yet or not. No update for C12 for marine activities or C13, which is recreation and parks. The M01, I did list up here, it's the compliance procedures, had a second reading that was passed at the November 18th directors meeting. And then, M09, I just have listed on here, for us to, keep an update on, because that's about the search committee. I don't believe we've got an update on that.
Crickets.
And then the book, the B01, which is the book of resolutions, we're working on that. Does anybody have any questions about anything that falls under the old business or status updates?
Okay, so M01,
Mhm. It had its second reading at the November 18th and passed.
Without your amendment.
so
Right.
just to be clear, M01 is the one that Jim
Had-
wrote all those recommendations up for.
That was,
So I'm just, what happened to that? Because none of that stuff was discussed, or it was
they
even.
did update some of it, that on that final draft, they did.
Did they?
Yes.
My
they did.
recollection is there was one or two that I would sort of refer to, not to disparage your work, Jim, but what I would refer to as sort of technical or conforming amendments that council drafted. So the final product reflects at least a couple of changes.
So it was taken into consideration
It was, but it was not identified as such
at the meeting.
at the meeting.
Specific.
And if you, I mean, there was just not a lot of debate about the resolution itself. This wasn't, so most of it just never came up.
So let me ask a question about the politics on the board. Does the board know pretty much what they're gonna do when the agenda's done? Put out? Do they have a majority that knows what they're gonna do? Because you didn't even get a second on yours.
That's not, he may not be able to answer that.
What I
Well,
would
could he
say,
say that?
what I would say is, all matters that are subject to a vote by the board are voted on by the board at the time of the meeting.
Okay, I got it.
I'm trying to remember on the resolutions, we're not getting feedback from the committee. Did we define the procedure that this committee was handling in the event you didn't get it? Was that the attachment that went with the control document?
Yeah, I
Or was
apologize.
that?
Sometimes it doesn't print.
Yeah,
There is language on there that says if we do not receive any feedback in a certain period of time, we'll consider it a done deal.
yeah. My suggestion would be, or thought, is to the committees that haven't responded, to photocopy that, send it to the committee and say, if we don't hear from you by, we're going to consider it
I can
resolved.
do one last say, final
So
reminder.
don't remind them.
You know,
My recollection was when I first got on the, and Jim, you might,
I'm trying to,
my recollection was.
huh? I thought it was
Discussion
19.
both
So
about
does it
the
show up on
time
yours?
limit and about
On your,
the
no,
number of
on your
notices. In other
computer.
words, Bylaws that sent notice to the committee chairman that's up for review.
That's,
And then if they didn't hear, there'd be a second notice and one or both of them, but certainly the second notice would say, if we don't hear from you within whatever it was, 60 days or 90, I don't remember what it was, then we consider this a finished product.
yeah, we documented that
Right.
and it's an attachment to it. And
Yeah,
that's what I was looking for, searching here, and I couldn't find it.
That, because that page is a text page, sometimes it prints with this and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
I apologize. But yes, it absolutely
Okay,
says
here
that that's
it
our process.
here's the.
Is that it?
Yeah,
Can you magnify that a little bit?
this is the one, this is the
The attachment.
construction
Yeah,
sheet
Well,
that was
it's-
approved December 3rd of 2021.
Can you magnify that a little
Make
bit?
it a little bit bigger.
There you
yeah,
go.
because I think we've been through this quite a few
Yeah, I
times
started
in the
with this
past.
Discussion when I
Yeah.
first got on the.
And we documented it because it was confusing and things just dragged out. Now, a suggestion, I would think that the committee might want to take a quick look at any of them
All right.
to make sure that none of them are consistent with the bylaw changes that were made. You know, that there's no conflict, because we're in a better position to spot that, this committee, than probably the
If you-
person with the resolution.
If you look at B up there, it says, the second
30 days.
request will inform them of the importance of the resolution review process and advise them that if no response is received within 30 days, we will consider the lack of response as their authorization for our committee to consider their review process completed. So,
Well, in that case, I think it may be worth noting that the elections committee has responded and has said they are in the process of
right,
going
so
through
there's
the
a
review.
process.
So that the 30, the
That's correct.
second notice and the 30 days should not toll you.
Right,
Right, this would really apply to these other 4 or 5
The no response.
resolutions where you receive no response whatsoever.
and then I think that would be like C, because C says in cases where an acknowledgement is not received within 60 days, then we're gonna consider it be reviewed. So if we've sent out, you know, our reminders and everything, and we get no feedback from them at all after 60 days, then we can consider it reviewed, correct?
Yeah,
Versus like elections saying they're in the process. and
I think
they're-
that's totally
There's a
different.
difference between the committee resolutions, which are C resolutions,
Right,
and the substantive resolutions, for lack of a better term,
right.
which are M's and F's. So, and to some degree
Yeah.
B.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah, those don't apply.
Right.
That applies only to committee resolutions,
Correct.
not to the board. And we, were you part of it? You were here when we developed that.
yeah, that's what I was, that's my, I think I just got
Yeah.
on the.
It was the intent. So if a committee comes back and said, we're working on it, even if it takes them 6 months, they're working on it,
Right.
that's different. You know, you can ask them how far can you help or whatever, but
Right.
you want to get it resolved. But the people that don't respond, that was the intent. And
Right.
most of those aren't affected by the bylaws to any great degree.
Right.
It's the
I can
method
send
of
out-
operating.
I can send out one more. for my-
Yeah, I would,
Make sure
but
that
if
that-
you,
Well, so technically, C7 falls under that, because that was due September 23rd. And you notified them, there's been no response,
Right,
so C7 would fall under that. C10 would fall under that. C12 would fall under that, C13 would fall under that. So maybe you should send them one last email and say, look, this is the rule.
we have
So
not heard from you, so.
if you're working on it, that's fine, just tell us. Otherwise, we're gonna mark it as no response complete.
Okay.
yeah, because
For what it's worth, well, I believe environment and maybe strategic planning both have new chairs. I know the environment committee does, but I thought strategic planning does too. I'm not positive about that.
Okay. Well, it should be on the website, right?
Well, it should be, yeah.
Because that's what I use.
I think the
That's
thing
how
to
I
remember
found
is
our email.
any committee has the option of reviewing their resolution at any time and suggesting changes. So it doesn't negate them making a change in the future. All it says is we went to the committee, we asked, you want to make changes, we didn't get a response, and therefore we consider it reviewed. And it moves out for another 2 years.
Right, I mean, my only point was, at least with the environment, maybe
Yeah.
planning, the notice that Laura sent to them might have fallen through the cracks when you transferred from one
Right,
chair to another. That was my,
right.
You know, even if it did, they had the option
Oh,
of
yeah.
coming back and
Okay.
changing it. if
Do
they
you
want.
CC their board liaisons,
The what?
the board liaison?
Yes. Mhm.
okay.
I have a question, if I may, I'm going to call it procedure that we just had up there. I can't rely on my memory on stuff like this anymore. Is that document the committee internal document, or is that an attachment to B01?
No, Jim, that was an internal document. The intent was to propose it and later get it attached to B01. That way the board would have approval of it as well. Right now, it's our internal document.
It's just part of our governance tracker.
Okay, I suggest the consideration of advancing it as a attachment to B01. It has at least an advantage of publicizing it so that it's an official part of the resolutions process. I would suggest that that be considered. Let's put it that way.
I think that makes sense too, because you won't have me asking you why we're doing this. It tells us.
So
Good point.
I gotta say that I don't think it's a good idea,
Why?
because it creates a circular problem.
Mhm.
So we have a resolution that says these things have to be reviewed every 2 years. The board has signed off on that. So the board is saying you have to review your resolutions every 2 years. Then what we're going to do is we're going to create a document that says, well, if you don't review it and you don't respond to us, we're going to let you off the hook by marking it as reviewed and moving on. So we've just negated the requirement by the board to review the document every 2 years. Because all they got to do is just not respond to it. We mark it as done and we move on.
True. Well, I hear what you're saying, but the point is, it keeps being circular, no matter which way you go. If you do it that way, which you just described, which is we mark it off and done. But if we don't do it, if we follow this, then does she have to go to the committee and say, by the way, we're waiting for your response? Because that's what you're doing. It's a letter here, a letter there, a final notice, and they still ignore it.
Well, I'm just saying, if we make it official by putting it in the resolution, the board's going to approve that, which means now the board's approved 2 things. They've approved one, saying you have to review it every 2 years, and they've approved another one that says, but if you don't do anything, we'll let you off.
Yeah.
Can I just make one
Yeah.
point? I just, the
I have a question.
the first paragraph says purpose of the governance document form. Now, I don't know. So I'm gonna make this the form of a question, but is our government's document form identified within B01? Yeah, B01, because if it's not, then we first have to get the form attached to B01 as an attachment. I'm not,
Can somebody pull B01 up?
Oh. Just a second.
Oh,
because
I don't think it is.
because
I think it is.
this document refers to this document.
That's an internal, our control.
Yeah, I think it just says we're
Right.
responsible for tracking.
Right.
So this is the way it was, we developed.
To me, I don't see a problem with the committee having its own process, if you will, and laying it out. And as long as the relevant committees are either receive a copy of this or are informed of what's in this document, at that point, the ball's in their court. And like we said, if they don't do it, then we just go on for another 2 years.
There's, the other way to look at it is, the board said you're obligated to review them every 2 years. Theoretically, if a committee chair doesn't ignore it, then the obligation is to send it to the board and say, what do you want us to do? We can't get an answer.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, and then you're getting into a contest that you want to avoid.
I think that's why the board doesn't want to do that.
I know, that's why they don't. So the simple thing is, that's our procedure.
Right.
If they keep
We
it
document it
internal,
on here, we received
Yeah.
no response, we're moving on with our
As long,
lives.
as long as we follow our procedures,
Yeah.
be okay.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm good with following this as it is. I just don't think that we should make it a part of the formal
but we
resolution.
weren't, we stopped following it. That was the problem. That's how they're getting backed up.
Oh, I see.
You know, except for the board, the ones that are board control, we have no, those need to be looked at by the board, and we just need to keep our poor board liaison needs to keep bringing them up. What are you gonna do? Do you want to review it, or do we call it reviewed?
That document is very dense. So if I were committee chair, maybe I would read it. On the other hand, maybe I would scan it.
Yeah.
So my experience is, if you want to specifically do 1, 2, 3, you do it that way. You put a bullet in or you yellow it somehow to bring it to their attention. But that's a pretty dense document. That's all I gotta say.
Because that was really not written for other committees to read. That was written for us. So your point is taken. No, your point
It's an internal document.
Look, I understand that it's for a committee, right? I get it, but you're taking it one step further.
No, I'm not saying that.
He's saying don't.
That's not what I'm saying.
Wait, can I finish?
I'm trying to agree with you.
Well, I'm not hearing that. Could I just finish the sentence?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah, I forgot where I was going. If this is your process, we're gonna send one letter, we need to review it, please let us know. You're gonna send the second letter, you didn't review it yet. And then this is the final notice. That's our process, right? All right. So what, I don't get what the problem is, because you just said, send it to the board. You just said, well, they're not gonna do that. They don't wanna do that.
Right.
And
I agree.
and in the meantime, if I'm sitting on this committee and I don't get it, and I'm doing my homework between committee meetings, what do you think the other committees are doing?
I don't know what they're doing.
They're
Our
doing
responsibility is to our stuff. So
Right.
I read my stuff.
That was a rhetorical question.
Oh.
If you're so, I don't want to use the word good because it sounds not right. If you're so invested in making sure that this committee does the right thing, then I applaud that. But we can't count on other people being as invested as you are. And that's why I'm thinking they don't get back to you.
I don't know what you're saying. I'm agreeing with you that in the notice that she sends, the email she sends, that she do exactly what you're saying and lay it out, bulletized, very short, very quick, that we don't send them this document. We don't highlight it. We don't send them this because it wasn't intended
Okay,
for them.
I get it.
That in her communications with them, she does exactly what you say, which makes it very short and succinct.
Which is what
We
I've
don't
done.
hear from you by this time. We're gonna.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you do that in the emails that you sent?
Yeah.
Well, then we should just mark them and move on.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. And by putting the language in there
Yeah.
that we drafted in here, which is to say, we received no response, so we're going to consider review, and we documented the fact that
Yeah.
they didn't respond. Yeah, I'm with that.
That's a frustration that I lived with when I had that form, not being able to get an answer. And Jim didn't get answers because he kept following up with them.
I also think there's probably a little bit of a disconnect in the sense that every time there's a new president of the directors, there is no official email from that president to all of the committee chairs that I recall having received that just says, hey, welcome. Let's, here's our my expectations of when we communicate with each other, that we respond to emails and whatever in a timely manner. None of that kind of occurs. So you don't know, some of the chairpersons that are on other committees have been around for a while. You would expect them to understand some of these processes already because they've been a chairperson for a while. But there are new people out there that are becoming a chairperson, maybe I've added extra duties as chairperson because my predecessor, would attend all the directors' meetings. I never received anything that said you have to attend all of this stuff, right? I do it because it's what I would, to be an effective chairperson, I expect myself to do, right? But there is no quote training. There is no update on, like the new directors are supposed to get an orientation thing. There's nothing year to year for chairpersons, so we're all kind of winging it a little bit on our own,
We actually discussed this, I want to say it was last year, the very thing that you're talking about, because what we were considering doing was recommending to the board to make some changes to C01 to standardize the
Some of the
methodologies
templates.
across the committees.
Yes,
And
exactly.
Because
actually, I've got on here charging document created. So one of them was resolution review because we all do it differently. And there's an outstanding charging document to the board against C01 for this.
right.
And I would like to comment on your what you talked about. When I came on this committee, I know I had a difficult start, but I will tell you, I had gone through the academy. I had done all of the committees. I stumbled over the resolutions. I realized they were policies and procedures, but it would make a difference for me. I don't know about anybody else to have an orientation like you're describing. And I was actually going to bring it up next year because I feel like there's a new person coming on. I'm not that stupid. All right. I'm intelligent. I can read and I can make connections. I'm assuming everyone on the board can do that. And so you need some kind of an orientation.
Um,
I agree.
Because what I'm going to do in the new year, because I'm like you, I'm going to every single committee to figure out what they're doing.
Right.
Just because I want to know. And then I can lose my husband when he thinks it's so easy in the golf committee.
So, but anyway, you know, some of that stuff, in an ideal world, all of this, we'd all be using the same template format for minutes, from our meetings. We'd all be using a similar format, template for agendas, because there are other committees that aren't consistent with that, or put their minutes in an email blast to their committee, which is not official minutes. You know what I mean?
But that's because they don't know.
Well, yes and no. I think that is part of it. I think there are those who choose not to be official and just do it the way they want to do.
I hear you. If you're in an organization, the organization has things that you have to do. Or policy. I can only go back to policies and procedures or SOPs. If the organization wants it to run comfortably, then it needs to have consistency across the board.
So, well, that'll be on the to-do list for quite a while, but that is something that we can keep working on as we go. And ideally, we make sure that our committee does things in a professional manner, in a transparent and cohesive manner, so that if anybody else is looking at our committee, they can understand it. You know, that is our job, to worry about us initially. You know what I mean? Ultimately, is we just need to make sure we are doing what we're doing correctly. And then if we can get the other committees to get on board with it, that's great. But it is not our place to tell them how to run it. Somebody else in the directors has to do that. Okay. So moving on, is 2:09, time to get to the new business. I am going to share. Give me 1 second here. There was a presentation done by this group, and I forget how many months ago it was. What were we in? December? Maybe it was at the October, November directors meeting. Gary Miller is the chairperson for this group. He presented a presentation to the directors, asking they would like to create and have it's tentatively like an Ocean Pines Day. They feel that it would be really great and informative if Ocean Pines Association has an event in April, a kickoff to our summer season, you know, everything, so that new people who've moved into the area and all that know what kind of amenities we have and things like that, what kind of committees we have, and all of that. So this is the slide presentation that they gave to the board. We won't go through all of it, but you know, I emailed it all out to you so you all can look at it too. So Gary emailed all of the chairpersons for all the committees and all of the different amenities that we have, you know, asking if we would all be a part of this event. And the event would take place over here where the farmer's market is, you know, in that section over there. And it's going to be like a family fun day kind of thing. They're going to have food trucks and beverage carts and some, beverage trucks, I would say, so there will be some alcohol and, if you so choose, there will be a dunking booth. I'm not volunteering for that one.
That could get lively.
They will
Just
have some
alcohol.
kid activities, but in their mind, there's kind of, have you ever been up here, when the chamber has put on one of their expos where they would have local businesses in our area come up, set up, be there when the farmer's market was going on, so that you could go to the farmer's market and then go visit these different tables and get information about local businesses, right? That's their kind of vision, but this would all be done in after the farmer's market is done. They're talking about like 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. But even having like a table for the bylaws committee. How exciting is that one? What are we gonna laminate, print out and laminate all of the bylaws and
And a big
things?
flat
and-
screen TV.
Right.
Show people how to get to the book of resolution.
Good idea.
Yeah.
And they
Let
said,
me show you how to get there.
And they, but there's the expectation is like those of us on the different committees could be there to answer questions from residents who show up, right? I think the most popular table would be the art committee, then probably, what can and can we not do on our property,
People
I don't want to be that person answering that question, but, so this is their presentation. They want to showcase the amenities and the activities, promote memberships, for those amenities, encourage the community, I guess, pride of being in Ocean Pines. And their thought is that this would help increase the Ocean Pines revenue. That if they get new members for like the different amenities, golf and pools and whatever, So, I could have played dumb and I could have not gone to any of the meeting, but I wanted to go and see what's going on. I don't have a big role in the planning part of it. It's because it's not my niche. It's not my area. But they are partnering with the Chamber of Commerce, which now has changed their name. They are no longer Ocean Pines Chamber of Commerce. They are now Worcester County Chamber of Commerce, because they feel like have a broader area to service business-wise than just Ocean Pines. But anyway, they're utilizing the chamber's president, her connections with different businesses and stuff like that to bring them in together. So the date that they're looking at is April 20th, Saturday. And I think the potential rain date might be the following Saturday on the 27th. That's when the chamber is supposed to have their event. So, but I wanted to share that with you so that I can at least say, I have brought it to this committee, because I forgot to last month, but, they will have, like, you would have to pay, for this additional, food or beer or wine or snowballs or whatever, but they're hoping to get, some of these businesses to, donate time and then don't, like a vendor fee, like, hey, beer truck here. Since you have your own mobile beer license and all that, the Ocean Pines doesn't have to worry about having it because they will have their own license, but they would pay Ocean Pines $300 to be here for that event, and we earn money that way. Then they're looking to have sponsorships from businesses and all that. So, I'm sharing this. This is not a big, long discussion. I am just sharing the information. What I need from you all to know is, do we need to have a table? Do we want to have a table? Do we have people who want to volunteer to help run that table that day? And all that kind of stuff.
Well, to Pam's point, I think we should have a table. And I could see, and I'll volunteer to man a table because I'm with you, Pam. When I first got here, I didn't understand any of this. And especially when you got a guy like Jim who knows all this stuff.
Yeah. well,
And
it's
he's
too
talking
familiar.
along so comfortably about this and that. And I'm over here making notes and I go home and I'm, it was painful.
It's very painful. I
So-
haven't gotten over the pain.
I think it would be very helpful. I mean, in my mind, I could see us easily having something set up that just shows people, here's when we talk about government documents, this is what it means.
Right.
These are the stuff that's available to you. Here's on the website where you can get to it. These
Now, they're
cover.
leaving it up to us to decide what we put on that table for us.
Yeah, I don't think we
can
really
do a,
need to get into what it is we
tribal,
specifically
You
do.
know, tribal board or, something that says, or like you said, just pictures of how to find it.
I literally can set up a flat screen TV out there and connect it to the internet and we can literally show them, go here, go to the
Right.
Ocean Pines page, go up and show them how to get to these documents. Because for the first year that I lived here, I was begging people, where are all these rules?
Yes.
Right,
Because we inherited a family member's house. We didn't purchase.
right.
So we didn't go through that whole process with realtors.
I
So we
don't-
didn't get a
I don't
package.
think-
We didn't get anything. That's actually one of my complaints when I first came. Well, how come we don't get a Welcome to Ocean Pines package, right?
Right.
Which is something, if they're gonna do this, they should have a little,
Well, they're gonna have a bag. Yes, they're
and
gonna
it should have whatever, there should be Welcome to Ocean Pines
Right.
literature or something in there.
Yeah.
We bought in 1991 and we didn't get anything either.
Yeah, apparently now, today, if they do that, I guess it's required by law, real estate law, that because you're signing into an HOA, you have to have
Right,
certain documents that are included.
It took us 5 years to figure out we were in the
At the
HOA.
time of closing.
yeah.
Yeah, at the time of
So-
closing, right. But so anyway, I'm
You gotta pay for
willing
it.
to
You don't
set
have
it
to do it
up.
by yourself.
Yeah.
Say
I'm
that they,
willing to help out.
Yeah,
I just want to say something about this group because I went one of their first meetings. It was in March. And then unfortunately Johnny died. I just didn't have the ability to keep going. And my sense was from that, they didn't do any market analysis. They didn't see if they could get people to come. And my perception from one meeting is they needed to do a lot more work.
well, they,
And I know that they have, I've been following them and I can't get the information back from them. They still did not do a market analysis. So how many people are going to come?
they're at a high number, they're envisioning like 1,000 people.
I
And
doubt
you have
that's
to
serious.
Remember, they're all volunteers trying to do this.
I do remember that, but there are, aren't we, this is what I don't get. We are all people who have very successful careers. And we learned in whatever area that we were in, how to work through doing things. And that group, when I went the one time, was very enthusiastic. Very enthusiastic. And I was quite impressed with, we're going to take the bull by the horns. Now, I didn't think they were going to get it through the board of directors, but they did. And, but I don't think they're going to have massive amounts, like they said. I was in marketing for 10 years. Who's going to come? Will come, but who outside of us is going to come?
They're going to be, from the most recent meetings I have attended, they're because they are now more connected and partnering with the chamber. She
Yeah, I hadn't
is
heard that.
able to help, because she's got a lot of business contacts anyway, to get the word out that way. Because it's an Ocean Pines event, they have been encouraged. Monica is their, this work group's board liaison, has encouraged them to use the marketing team that's part of Ocean Pines, and so she is, because the work group people are not supposed to be contacting like Josh or anybody directly. They got to go through Monica first so that, it can be done in the proper chain that way. But they're supposed to be getting him to help write a press release. They're going to do lots of publications in the newspapers and things like that. Granted, it's the first time they're trying to pull this off. Of course, they're optimistic and want to pick a big number. You're probably correct. It's probably not going to be super attended, but as far as what they are anticipating, I think they will get participation because, you know, Chamber had an Oktoberfest up here. People attended, even with rain, you know.
Ocean Pines people attended. They didn't get a whole lot of people outside of Ocean Pines. That's what I'm trying to say. Ocean Pines is somewhat, can I finish?
But
Ocean Pines is somewhat insular. If you have, I have several friends out of Ocean Pines, and basically I've said something to them about what's going on in here. One guy in particular, and he said, "Why would I go into Ocean Pines for that?" And I said, "Well, you could go to the swimming pool." But I don't think the general population thinks of being a part of Ocean Pines.
that's not their goal here for the general population. Their main goal is residents. People like when they move in knowing, hey, we have pickleball. Hey, we've got these amenities. Now, if public, because they are public amenities,
Okay.
show up and all of that. The target is the people who live here.
Okay,
Or
they
who are
narrow the
newer
target.
here, then to let them know what we have to offer, so
Okay.
that you don't spend 5 years, 10 years going, well, I never heard that we did this. You know what I mean? That's the goal, is to kind of kick off your season and say, hey, we have a farmer's market. Hey, we've got, you know, all this stuff. And if the outside area also joins us, then that's a plus, you know,
Okay,
that's
we'll
not
see.
the target, at least to my understanding.
You gotta be open to
Okay.
new things.
So,
If
but,
you want to put a table up, I'll help you.
Okay.
all right, so anyway. I will, be attending the next meeting. I will let them know that we'll have a table. We'll figure out, we can, email as a committee offline in that sense to figure out what we're
Yeah.
gonna put on that. And we have a little bit of time, obviously. It's not till April
I'll
20th.
just,
We've got some
I'll
time.
just chime in. I'm happy to help prepare materials. My nephew is getting married in Phoenix, Arizona on April 20th, so I will be attending that wedding.
You are our jet setter. You are always at home.
You know,
You know?
when Augie started talking, you know what I envisioned?
What?
Us having a little computer monitor set up with Augie on it.
Actually, that's not a bad idea. It's gotta be a wedding.
Yeah.
Can we make it like the jet set?
I just heard Augie saying, yeah, I'll be there, but it'll be remote. So we have a little monitor on the side.
I'm happy to do that unless it's exactly at the same time as the wedding.
Is it just don't start talking about our committee in the middle when they go, or is there anyone here who objects to this wedding? And you start, you know, speaking and they're gonna think you're objecting to the wedding.
Oh, my goodness.
All right, so moving on. M04 is the maintenance of lots. It has had a first reading at the November directors meeting. Now, let me see if I can find my, I gotta look here, hold on. M01.
So while you're looking that up, back to what Jim said at the beginning during public comments.
Yeah.
I think it was a good point, because I remember when M04 was changed last time, and we specifically had to change it because the content in there was not addressed in any way. And most of that content now has been incorporated into this other document.
Right.
So you really don't need M04 anymore. I agree with Jim on this. I just think it's redundant to, you know, to the, what was it, M6? Or the one,
I have it up on the
M01, yeah.
screen. It was approved back in May 19th of 1920? No.
2020.
2020.
I know, it's missing a line there, but it made me, you know, but that is, this one here. So.
50 years before Ocean
I was
Pines
gonna say,
started.
were you all here then? Right?
50 years before Ocean Pines.
So,
This basically addresses a conflict and what to do about it. which is now been incorporated into the document. If we have a conflict,
So
it's an
what
outcome.
is the,
What's
what
missing?
is the recommendation from our committee then, that, are we sharing that thought with with the directors? Because
Well,
they
if it's-
already-
it's
they
been to a
already
first
put it
reading,
through
right?
A first reading.
So we would have to, if, I would suggest, my position would be that we make a recommendation to the board during the second reading that they just kill it. That they just rescind it, that it's no longer necessary. And if we agreed as a committee that that's what we wanted to do, then our esteemed board liaison here would bring that to the board on our behalf.
Do you know if they're planning to do the second reading at the December meeting?
I haven't seen the agenda. My assumption is that they are,
Right.
but.
Since they did the first one in November,
I have not, I haven't, there's no agenda.
nothing official yet, okay.
I mean, I'm happy to report to the board, and in fairness, probably to council as well, that, you know, the bylaws committee is of the opinion that B04 is necessary in light of the changes made in M01. And if for some reason that is, you know, if someone has an objection to that point of view, I mean, we'd like to hear it. There may be, I mean, I certainly have no disagreement with what Jim has said. I just, I mean, clearly, M01 as the new M01 has clearly made a line of demarcation between variances, which will be under the rubric of ARC, and violations, which is under CPI. And some of the discussion with the new responsibilities of CPI came to, you know, the ability to enter the land. And part of that was also, well, if they enter, you know, why are they doing it? It's really just to, you know, take pictures and to determine if a violation exists and all this other stuff. I just don't recall whether the new M01 also continues with the idea that staff can go on, mow the lawn or clean the lawn or whatever term, you know, and then the homeowner would get billed for it. And I really didn't focus on it, but my recollection was the discussion was that that CPI would bring to the board a list of violations which the board would need to vote on, perhaps even by email, because of the rate that grass grows or garbage collects on the lawn. And, you know, those were sort of the issues that they wanted to get quicker turnaround on. So, but, you know, if the, you know, like I said, I'd be more than happy to send an email to the board members and to council that in light of the changes in M01, it's the committee's view that B04 need not exist, and maybe we'd be well advised just to repeal it and just rescind it.
So if there's someone who has a grass problem, if this were repealed, what would happen under M01? Do we go through all these steps?
Candidly, I'd have to go. Yeah, I mean, basically, what it comes down to is, and again, I'm sort of doing this by memory, but once the homeowner is informed of I don't know what they call it, a potential violation or a real violation, that your grass is too high, they have 15 days to remedy, which means they got to cut grass. If they don't, then I think there's a second notice that goes off pretty quickly.
This is M01.
When can they actually mow the grass under M01?
They should be mowing it at a regular period, but
No. When can the Ocean Pines go onto the property and cut the grass?
I think they have to wait, don't they? Don't they have to wait a certain amount of time to give the owner the opportunity to do it?
Yeah, right. The owner has 15 days to remedy.
I
Yeah,
remember,
I'm worried that about recommending something that seems like a substantive change to how grass is handled rather than just a procedural change.
Right.
So I'm not sure I fully am up to understanding how getting rid of the maintenance of lots resolution entirely would address, would make sure that that's still covered.
Looking at 01, it doesn't look like they actually are specific about the grass portion like this maintenance of lots one has.
Well, as I say, some of this came up during an email discussion, but what the suggestion was that CPI violations that required court attention, that is not the first notice where you have 15 days to remedy, but the next several steps after that would be handled by email votes, which require unanimity, by the way. Because of the concern that grass grows so fast during the season that grass grows. And also lumped into that was the notion that people who don't care for their property lots generally have, trash and garbage and all that, which leads to a lot of infestation and rodents, and it affects the houses next door and across the street, and, all those sort of considerations. So the notion was that the CPI would inform the board on a regular basis of those sort of violations, which need, in the opinion of some, would need email voting, which is it requires unanimity on the part of the board.
the problem with this though, and I understand what Augie's saying, but it seems to me there's a conflict here, because if you look in 3B basically says, well, what do you do if we have to do this? And what 3B says, well, we're going to come on and cut your grass, and
Right.
we're going to add the charge to that.
And it doesn't say that they
The
have to
cost
wait.
of, become part of the annual charge to which the lot is subject. So in other words,
They could do it, give you the notice and then go cut it themselves.
well, I'm saying they're taking an action against you that is in some ways adjudicated, it seems to me, in M01, in the new M01. That, how do we take action against you? Well, here's how we're going to do it. And Maryland law states we have to consider these things if we're going to take action against you. Well, here we have another resolution talking about taking action against a homeowner.
Right.
So I guess my first question would be, is do they conflict with each other? If this just says, well, we're going to let you know your grass is over, 10 inches?
Mhm.
And if you don't respond and cut it, we're going to come cut it, and then we're going to charge you for it. We're going to add it to your bill. Does M1 apply to this? Do we need to go through the whole notification process to say we're going to add this to your annual charge? Because if at the end of the year they have difficulty paying their annual charge because we added some chunk of money to it that they
Mhm.
weren't prepared for it, and so now we're going to, because they're having difficulty with the annual charge, we're going to take their vote away, and we're going to do. It just seems like this potentially creates a problem.
Well,
Laura, can I step in here for a second?
Sure, Jim. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we need to clarify some stuff about what we're talking about. What you have on the screen now is
Mhm.
the existing M04.
Correct.
Now the red line draft that was up for first reading, and it is a first reading, subject to being called up now as a second reading, the next board meeting, makes the following changes. Okay, if you're gonna, can you go to the red line itself?
Yeah, here.
Oh, yeah, can you make that bigger?
I pulled it out of the packet.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, yeah, it's in the plaque. Notice that the red line inserts in 2B, the 2/3 majority reference, then it completely deletes paragraph B out of 3. Now, what does that leave you with? Tell me from that, if that's passed, if that's approved, tell me how you're going to handle a violation for overgrown lawn.
mean, I think if there's a super majority, they can mow it or they can use M01.
Okay, but let's stick with what you just first said. If we use a super majority, how on this resolution does the violation of a particular lot get to the board for us to consider the supermajority provision? There is nothing there's no direction shown as to how to get to the board to take an action under this resolution.
That would be M01 then? We get it to the board? What you're saying?
M01 gets it to the board. Now, if we may, Laura, let's go to the topic, sometimes called the motion page itself, where the first reading topic is for discussion is. That was what you had up first.
This part, or the,
Made to align to board requirements in M01.
Okay, now, the proposed document revised to conform to 11B, should be 111.10, B2 and B3. B1, or B2, I'm sorry, B2 is the first notice to the violator or demand, as the provision in the Homeowner Association Act uses the word demand on the violator to correct the violation. The B3 is the follow-up that says we're going to have a meeting to consider sanctions and action on this violation, and you can have it as a hearing. If you don't request a hearing, we're going to go ahead and hear it we're going to conduct a board meeting to decide what to do with it. That's saying revised to conform with the HOA Act provision. Down here it says, under background, it says revisions made or will be made to align to board requirements in M01. M01, as it was revised in the last board meeting, approved simply, I realize that's an oversimplification, but it incorporates the provisions of 111B.10. So the whole purpose in the topic is to make this violation an M01 violation. And the proposed red line is completely vague about what you're going to do. All it does is says you're going to have a 2/3 majority. Okay, well, how do you get it to the board? Well, you get it to the board through M01 if you follow what's in the topics discussion that we just looked at. Again, the red line is
When under M01 can they do the self-help? When can the general manager enter the property and fix whatever the problem is?
Yeah, if you take it all the way through to the second notice, that's where the individual has the opportunity to request a hearing, or if you don't request a hearing, you go ahead with a board meeting to impose whatever action. Yeah, you at that step 2 or second notice, however you want to phrase it, at that point in time, there is available to the board the 2/3 majority for appropriate maintenance issues on the property. The board also has available to it the suspension of vote and amenities privileges, and the sending it to the attorney for the attorney to take action, including going to court. Those are the three basic choices, with the 2/3 majority being limited to the maintenance issues on the property. The property maintenance issues, whether they be shrubbery, grass, or a roof falling apart. Now,
I think the question is, do they want a simplified procedure for cutting grass on property?
That's correct. And red line draft that they have doesn't do that.
I agree.
You're going to have to elaborate more than what that red line draft does.
Yeah, because the very first line, the purpose, says the purpose of this is to establish what's considered unattractive or accumulated growth of rubbish.
Now, to be clear,
So
you can't just go ahead. Sorry.
Well, what I was gonna ask is this the only place where it says 10 inches is the limit?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. 3A, you can't just get rid of 3A. That's an important substantive policy, right?
Well, unless it's over like the art guidelines or something.
Well, I can add a little bit to that. If you read 3A, it says 10 inches or less if specified in an applicable declaration of restrictions. There are some declaration of restrictions that specify 6 inches. So that's why at one point in time, the resolution just read 10 inches. But then it was discovered that there are a few resolutions, and I'm not sure which ones. They may be the so-called new sections of 1990 and later. I'm not sure. But there are sections that say, I believe, 6 inches. So it's not a uniform 10, but the declaration of restrictions is the reference point for the requirement, not the art guidelines or any other document. The DRs are the reference. It's just the fact that the 10 inches is not uniform, or not universal, I'm sorry.
I violate 6 inches all the time.
I know.
Well, it's been a few years now, but there's a very wet spring, and I think probably every lawn in the
I mean,
Oh,
we're
community
just,
is about 10
we're just
inches.
begging the grass to grow at our place.
Yeah,
No shade.
Anyway, a point that Augie made, or the point that Augie made is if you want some kind of expedited process, the red line doesn't do that.
yeah, I
It
agree.
doesn't tell you how to get to the board, and you're going to have to do more writing about M04 to provide that expedited process.
So that's what it boils down to is the purpose of this, and that's right. The original purpose of this was to come up with a shortcut way to give the association permission to go cut somebody's grass. I mean, that was why we came up with this in the first place. Well,
And predecessor resolution also.
say that again, Jim.
This M04 succeeded a resolution that went back to 1996. And the purpose there is also to expedite getting the grass cut.
And so if they're going to neuter essentially this resolution to remove the means of cutting the grass, then it's kind of pointless. If all this is gonna do is punch you back to the standard long process, then your shortcut's gone.
Well, except for the fact that I don't disagree with a lot of what both Augie and Jim are saying, but it does seem to me that the intent of the red line is to rely on the supermajority vote to get quicker action. I think that's what they are aiming for. I think, as I read this, the suggestion should be to insert at a minimum language in M04 that refers everybody back to M01, because that's really what they're intending to do anyway. So that would, it may require more than that, but just putting it on the cover sheet for the first reading, it says we're trying to align this resolution with the amended or the new M01. I don't think that suffices. You need to incorporate the notion that because M01 is a procedural fix. So in order to make, and I'm assuming we're not talking about any more repealing M04, but in order to make M04 fit, you have to incorporate within M04 the procedures, at least by reference, that are found in M01.
But then you lose your shortcut.
I mean, why not just put in B, like 3B, the procedures of M01 will be used to enforce this resolution or something like that?
I don't, offhand, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I confess I have not focused on this very much, so I don't, the short answer is I'm not sure what the best answer is. I think it suffices, look, let me backtrack a little bit. I think we can at least assume that what's on the screen relating to M04 was drafted by council. And that being the case, it would seem to me it is reasonable to at least suggest that council should go back and review the text of the red line in M04 to make it abundantly clear that we are seeking to follow the procedures in M01. Now, he may be able to do it by reference, as Augie points out, and that may well suffice. But as I said earlier, and some of this was just discussed through emails among the board members, there was a concern about having this drag out longer than it should because of the way grass grows in March, April, May, and into June and July even. And also the debris and trash issue, which brings a variety of, for lack of a better term, vermin into the neighborhood, which bothers the neighbors, and rightly it should. So, you know, I think there has to be a way to sort of square this up with M01 without losing necessarily, and this is where council has to handle it, the notion that as to debris and trash and grass growth, there may be a way to act more quickly.
I will note, if you read M01 step 5, kind of the paragraph that talks about self-help, it doesn't really link it to the timing for the rest of that resolution. It just says if there's a 2/3 vote, then you can do self-help consistent with the declarations of restrictions. And section 8 of that says nothing limits OPA's other enforcement powers obtained in the DRs. So it might be that quicker procedure already exists under M01 when there's a 2/3 vote to do some sort of self-help for a situation that is time sensitive.
That makes sense, I think, but then I would think you'd want to incorporate a reference of M01 into M04 just to make the two consistent.
To that paragraph, maybe. So maybe not just in general, but to that paragraph, which basically says the same thing M04 said.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you have to find a way to tie the two together. And I don't think it's in the red line of M04 at this time. Now, whether or not council agrees, I don't know.
Well, council may not, especially since they're new council, I'm sorry. Especially since it's new council, they may not know what the original purpose of M04 was. I don't think they're clear. Well, then the board should know. The board should be reminded, the reason we did M04 is so we had a quick and easy way to go cut people's grass. That's the reason we did it. So now if that's no longer a priority and we're just concerned about following M01, a lot of us get rid of M04. If having a quick and easy way to go cut people's grass is still a priority, then what's in M04 as modified doesn't get you there.
Right, and I understand that's the discussion. The ultimate question if and when the board confronts this matter is whether council is satisfied that that further changes to M04 are necessary to link it to M01 or not.
No, I agree with that. Council's not going to care whether or not we want to go cut people's grass. He or she is just going to ensure that we don't have conflicting legal conflicts.
Yeah.
So that's all. That's why the board has to be the one to say, well, I get it. It's legal, but we want to be able to cut people's grass quickly. So how do we, or we don't. So in other words, the board has to have a decision and council has to have an input.
So whose definition is quickly? You know, when you say, oh, hey, by the way, your grass is.
Well, that's what M04
But
is for.
it doesn't say, we're gonna give you 7 days to get it done, and then we will come upon your lot
Well,
and
the
mow
time,
it for you.
if the intent is to make it clear that M04 follows the procedures found in M01 as it applies to trash, debris, and grass length, then the answer to your question is read M01. Because the first notice says you have 15 days to remedy this problem. If you don't, these are the steps that will then follow.
Because
So-
that's my concern about M04 though.
Right, so,
Doesn't-
but if you, but what, and I understand what I'm saying to you is you may be able to resolve this just by incorporating a reference
Right,
in M04 to M01, making it clear that yes, we want grass and debris and trash to be handled in a much more timely fashion,
Mhm.
for lack of a better term. In so doing, we're following the procedures in M01.
Right. And I think I would agree with that in the sense that, because I would be very upset if I'm a part-timer and I get my notice, I don't always, it depends on where the mail is being sent. Is it being sent here? And maybe I'm not here full-time
That's
and I don't, but anyway,
not gonna.
I would be upset if somebody came and mowed the lawn, and didn't give me an opportunity to come mow it myself or hire somebody else to do it for me before Ocean Pines decides to go in and then charge and probably a wait.
For what, we're off the beaten path a little. Wrong address and whatnot is not gonna enter into it. It's up to the homeowner to keep Ocean Pines informed as to the appropriate contact address. If they don't do it, they're screwed. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
that's not gonna enter into this at all.
Well, and also, under authority, B under authority, is talking about the DRs, right?
Right.
So if the DRs, which as I understand it, they're in the hierarchy of our procedures is
Right.
like at the top. So if the DRs say that your grass has to be kept to a certain length, and if not, we're gonna cut it, then
That's it.
that's it.
Yeah.
I just want to ask one question, and that is, I've read in many different places where each plot or each time that they add it on is governed by different different laws.
The declaration of restrictions.
Yes.
That's what you're referring to.
Right.
Yeah, these different sections of Ocean Pines.
Well, but it was my understanding that they were different.
They are.
They are.
They are different.
They are
In different places, there are different applications. Yes, that's true.
So does this cover every plot?
In
Yeah, because it
M04,
says
in
it-
M04, as it applies to grass lane, which is really, trash is trash. We know trash.
I got it.
Okay. But grass and weeds, it's 10 inches unless where you live, your DR says it's a different. number.
Okay, that second part of that, after the 10 inches part, or less, if specified in the applicable declaration of,
I got it.
restrictions.
And nobody knows what their DR is.
Right, so you have to know.
Nobody. So you don't even know
where you
what,
live and
what
what
it
that
says
is.
about your area. That just makes it even more confusing.
Except for the one neighbor who will go out there with a 12-inch ruler
Right.
and sit there and measure. And every neighborhood has one, believe me.
Oh, I believe you.
All right,
That's
so
called
what is
people.
our wrap up on this? What is our
I'm totally confused.
action?
I don't even know anymore.
Jim,
What is there any action for our committee other than,
Well, I think there's a problem here. I'm not entirely certain how to define it. But I think there's some sort of disconnect going on here that maybe needs to be fed back to the board for the second reading.
well, here, as I said, I'll do what the committee wants me to do. I don't have a problem in telling the board and council that upon review of M04, there is a concern that there is not adequate reference to M01 to make it clear that the procedures in M01 are to be followed when we're operating under M04, because M04 highlights trash, debris, weed, and grass length.
Right.
And based upon the emails that I saw at the time M01 was still in the incubator, that was why, those were time sensitive concerns. And again, rightly they should be.
Right.
So
But
I
there is
think where we are is that council should at least review and determine whether or not a more specific reference to, or any reference to M01 is in the text of M04 as opposed to being on the cover sheet at the time of the first and or second reading.
I
Well,
agree. I
cheated.
think without that reference, there's a risk that this will, someone will say, well, you can't enforce it at all. You got rid of the enforcement.
Part of the problem again is the density of that document. And you've got to make it easy to understand. So if you're going to take that back to M01, then I think we need to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is what we're referring to. And then that's pretty clear. But if we keep staying in the density of these documents, not that we're not supposed to have them, but I think it's important to be clear in what we think is missing. If I were sitting in that board of directors meeting and I had them sat in here, I would think you were nuts.
They already think.
I think we were proposed a flow chart for M01, and I can't
Yeah.
remember what happened with that, whether they said that was a great idea or not.
Oh, no, they reviewed it and said thanks, but no thanks.
right.
Jim,
Laura,
I just got a question for Jim. Jim, is it possible that any of these DRs override M01? Meaning, or do you think that any of these DRs that are out there, these various DRs, give outright permission to, do not pass go, go straight to jail, to go for the association to go cut the grass and to essentially not follow M1 for purposes of cutting grass? In other words, is it possible that if we say, well, you got to follow the process in M1, that we're actually violating some DRs?
Well, I was kind of going to bring up this kind of an element. It's not a question of violating the DRs. The question is whether or not what we're talking about is cutting the grass by the association using the 2/3 majority. And I'm talking about the 2/3 majority, whether that is truly covered, that kind of situation is truly covered by the 111.10, because this is not a deprivation of rights or a penalty to a homeowner. And that's what 111.10 is directed toward, is if you're going to deprive an owner of rights within the association, whether they be voting in our case and amenity rights, or penalizing them in some manner by fining them. This provision in the DRs is not really in that context unless you view adding the cost of the cutting to this individual's annual charge. And that can be, I guess, can be argued either way. I wouldn't argue that it is a penalty. I would argue that the 2/3 majority is outside of the 111.10. But it's not it doesn't violate the DRs. The question is whether the DRs would violate 111.10. If somebody wants
Jim,
to go down that road.
The first paragraph of 111.10 says, unless the declarations state otherwise, these procedures apply.
Yeah, because they take precedent.
You could argue, I think clearly argue, that the 2/3 majority violations are not subject to 111.10, but then you also have to establish a violation process to get to that 2/3 majority approval to take whatever action. M04 as written, or as not as written, but as proposed, does not do that.
Where's,
Can I,
This wears me out.
just to not put too fine a point on this, but my view will be, and I'll, again, if he tells me to do something, I'll go ahead and do it, but my view is, frankly, at best, at this point, on the assumption, by the way, that M04 is going to come up for second reading at the next board meeting, which is 10 days from now, or less than that. My assumption is, at best, we will be able to incorporate an appropriate reference to M01 within M04. With all due respect, I don't know that we could find this. There may be an answer. I just don't know what it is. Mine's better than mine, but I don't know that we can answer the conundrum that Jim has just raised. And so, I pass that on as a warning, or as a suggestion. It may well be, look, we have amended our resolution to conform with the state statute. And I would assume that it is possible whether we or some other homeowners association at some point will be dragged into court on some of the finer points as it relates to the statute. I don't know that we can answer all those questions right now. But as I say, based upon the time considerations, and again, on the assumption that M04 will come up at the December board meeting, I think the best we can seek is an appropriate and maybe section-specific reference within M04 to M01. That's my opinion. I'll leave it at that.
Oh, Steve, I kind of differ with that. I think the committee needs to be careful that we just don't leave this thing in a situation with okay, well, we hear this, but we're going to approve M04 anyway. The council's given us the indication that it's okay. I don't know, is he the one who drafted the red line? You apparently, Ken indicated that he did. I don't know who made up the first reading topics page, but the topics page certainly does not, where it makes reference to conform to 111.10, in particular, the first and second notice provisions. That certainly does not correlate with the red line. I'm not a member of the committee, but I would be concerned unless there is a firm statement of some kind that this does not appear to accomplish what is intended to be accomplished, whatever that intent is. I don't think that intent is clear. That this needs to be reconsidered, and in some indication of what in it needs to be reconsidered. Now, if I may, I want to skip to one other item, and I want to I need to back out of this. I'm concerned about, Steve, about your references to trash and debris. And I have no idea what input or what consideration council has given to this. And I quite frankly expect that each member of the board of directors is not familiar with the situation with regard to the trash and debris provision in Ocean Pines. The original M04 and an earlier separate revision, not revision, but resolution pertaining to trash and debris have the M04 included originally a trash and debris provision similar to the grass provision, which was a separate resolution previously. That's been taken out. You don't see that there anymore. And the reason why you do not see that there is a court action within Ocean Pines Circuit Court, which sometimes has been referred to as the decision of one man's trash is another man's treasure. And effectively, and I'm going by my understanding without having read the decision itself. What was in question, or the judge questioned and was against any capacity of the association to make a judgment between what is indeed trash and debris or repairable personal property. So you cannot use the trash and debris provision in the DRs without going to court, without the judge being able to identify what you are claiming to be trash is in fact trash and not repairable personal property.
Well, I don't know. I'm just picking up on the language that is in 2A, referring to the accumulation of rubbish or debris. I may have used a different term, but I think it's pretty much all the same sort of thing. It's very difficult for me to see how anyone can suggest that CPI does not have or should not have the ability to address the accumulation of rubbish, debris, or trash. Whether or not we get sued is a whole nother question. That's why we have counsel on the speed dial, I guess. But in all candor, Jim, I don't see how our members would appreciate removing that from consideration if that's what your suggestion is.
Steve, just to be aware, Jim's not on there now. He's off the call.
Oh,
So.
well, anyway,
Yeah,
well done.
off, so
where are we?
I mean, I feel like the express reference to M01 is what our committee should recommend.
we did, yeah.
Jim went off, signed off.
The what?
Jim left the meeting.
Yeah, he's on. He's not logged in.
It's 2:00 expired.
Hey, Augie, can you do me a favor if you have the moment? Because I didn't jot it down. Will you email me the references in M01 that you highlighted before as perhaps being appropriate?
Yes.
Okay, and then I'll try to draft something up and send it to the board, and I'll CC. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
I can do that after the meeting.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, I think the bottom line still comes down to how many homeowners are gonna take you to court because you cut the grass. Somebody may, somebody won't, but I think the references that you're making are important. That MO1 refers to
Yeah,
MO4.
I think that what you want to do is take out the ambiguity
Right,
between the two resolutions.
Right.
If Ocean Pines can go into court and tell the judge, we amended our resolutions to reflect the change in the statute, and this is, and we removed any ambiguity as between these two statutes that had existed before the legislature acted. I think that's a reasonable position to take. That would be my view.
Can you get back in?
he cut himself out.
Yeah.
Whether it succeeds or not is not the point, but it's the reason.
Right, no, but I think what you asked Augie for should solve the problem, at least to get it moving. Because Bruce is the one that moved it, Bruce Bragg.
Oh,
I believe so. I mean,
Yeah,
as much as I think the word was Elaine Brady, I don't.
well,
I
right.
don't think
And
she would have drafted.
you
this.
made
But
the
you know, this-
comment that the cover sheet is not what gets posted on the website, with the the resolutions and all that.
Yeah.
So you can't say it's in alignment with M01 up there. It's gotta be
Yeah,
in the body of it.
right.
And then I think just in general, this is an example of what happens when board responsible resolutions don't come through us. So when somebody outside of Ocean Pines, based on their criteria, which in this case was just, legal conflict criteria, modifies the document, it should come back to us. It shouldn't go straight back to the board and the board make a decision on it.
Right.
Because there could be other elements of it that are impacting that we would identify.
Right.
That are not part of what the legal conflict criteria.
And we wouldn't get it until after the first reading's done, when they
Right.
made their initial red line and
Yeah.
all of that.
I mean, if they wanted to modify M4 and they wanted the council's input on it, roger that, then they should have said, okay, let's let the bylaws committee look at it. And make sure that there isn't some other conflict going on here, because the board members aren't gonna do that. And the lawyer's not gonna do that.
No.
We're the only ones that are gonna do that.
Lack of process and procedure.
Okay. Welcome back, Jim.
I don't know what happened. I had to
You
reconnect.
got so excited you left. You thought it was after 3 and we're done, right? So,
I
yeah.
guess.
Mic drop.
Speaking of that,
So Steve is going to work up something to write to send to the rest of the directors about the disconnect there, and actually encouraging or suggesting that something specific referring to the M01 process is put into M04 before it's approved.
I mean, maybe the simple recommendation is the bylaws and resolutions committee would like an opportunity to look at this resolution first and to suggest some red lines before you approve it. And
Well, in theory, that's what the committee is doing right now. So I mean, if you're asking for more time, that's fine. I mean,
well, we were not asked by the board to do this. We're doing it on our own.
Right.
well, okay, and that may be a distinction without a difference, but
That's a word.
I mean, I will agree with Keith. It seems like these resolutions aren't being sent to us for review, really.
Right.
Yeah, frankly, I think that it would not be on the agenda if I had not asked Laura to do it. And even more frankly, I have a long history with M04 and it's a painful one. So I was not about to let it go by without discussion. Could I ask a question? How much of my tirade about debris and trash actually got through before I got lost?
Your whole thing was there. Your whole thing was there.
Yeah,
so.
you
Okay.
can't, here was my response.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you were spared from listening to Steve's tirade about your tirade.
I didn't hear it. What was it?
No. You're gonna have to go back and watch the video. We're over time now, so let's move on.
All right.
You know what the expression SOL means?
Look, if somebody thinks they're gonna take quick action on trash and debris without court intervention, I think you're SOL.
Yeah. Jim, just briefly, what I said was, assuming that M04 will be considered by the board
Which of the
at the next meeting.
last 3
If the reality is, I don't think
we're moving?
the board will get into the issue that you raised relating to trash and debris. I think the best we can do is incorporate a appropriately specific reference to M01. And if someone wants to take us to court over what is trash and debris, that's why we have counsel on speed dial. I don't think that's answerable. I just don't. You may disagree with me, but I don't think that's answerable at this point.
Steve, the only thing I can tell you is that the trash and debris coverage in M04 was deleted specifically because of court action. That's all I can tell you.
It's still in there.
No, it isn't.
Well, it's not down in the action taken section. It's up in the authority text.
Well, that would be an oversight for correcting the revision at the time that the omission was made.
Yeah, I agree.
It wouldn't be the first time.
So do we want to just ask Steve to present to the board that we would like some time to look at this and to make sure everything is being considered before they approve it?
I don't think they'll do that. I think we should provide our specific recommendation on the cross-reference.
My guess is that they would probably just, even if we put in the request for more time, the way things tend to roll is they're on a mission to get second readings done. They're just gonna do it.
Well, just like this issue here that Jen just brought up, as an oversight from the last time it was updated, is that language up there in 2A on rubbish and debris should not have been included.
Right.
It's,
Again, that to me is a substantive thing. I don't.
I'm gonna, again, I'm not a committee member, but I'm gonna agree with Augie. I think that some specifics have to be directed to the board about concerns regarding the M04 red line. Otherwise you're could very well have the board just continue on, pass it as is. And as far as I'm concerned, some reasonably good concerns about M01 were forwarded to, I guess, well, one way or another, they made it to council, and council came back with responses which I don't believe really addressed what was being addressed from this committee. And I think if you don't be specific about your concerns about M04, there's a good chance, there's the possibility, let me rephrase that M04 be approved without much comment at all. Well, there may be some comment, well, we got some other things from the Bylaws and Resolutions Committee, but we don't consider them to be necessary to be addressed.
I mean, I do think, Keith, that as a more general matter, it might make sense to say, why shouldn't some of these be coming to us to review? Like, there's a lot of changes happening, and I haven't been here very long, but my sense is the normal process is for this committee to review these changes.
Right. It should come from our liaison that we're asked to, keep saying I apologize. It should come from the liaison to the committee chair to address a particular item and particular resolution actions.
Jim, do you have the case citation, or at least the name of the case, as it relates to trash and debris?
No, I don't. I'm not sure I can get that, or how I could. There's probably a way I could, but
Okay.
not easily. Let's put it that way.
I remember that court case.
Huh?
I remember that court case.
Yeah.
Well, since I've been here.
It's in Maryland?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
It
yeah.
It was in Ocean Palms.
It was Ocean
Yeah,
Palms.
Worcester County Circuit Court.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see if I'll try to find it.
Yeah, some guy
Before
had
Bruce
full of
Brown.
trash and we went in there to clean it up and he sued.
Before Bruce
And the
Brown.
judge said you had no right to take that stuff.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. The neighbors were complaining and nobody was doing anything about it, so we did something about it.
And then we got to court and lost.
And we lost. That's right.
Okay.
So how are you guys going to sum it up? Since I'm
I don't know.
recommending-
I mean, there's a lot of elements to this.
Moving
And there's a lot of
parts.
things discussed. If you put a gun to my head and said, write 4 bullets, I don't think I could do it.
I think Augie's suggesting what he is going to will help, but I think you need to cite the lawsuit that was lost once and we don't need it again.
We should probably keep going. So what, just to wrap that up for M04, Steve is going to, send something to the directors stating that we have concerns, or is that something that you want us to create and then give to you to send to the
I'll, in the interest of the time, I'll send something to them. and say,
I mean, to me, the primary thing, at bare minimum, if they're gonna push this through, something has to be added about the M01
yeah,
in there.
and I
And
think,
that, so that's gotta be noted. And then if we can have a little extra time, we could address the other.
look, I think I can draft something up appropriately. I will also contact Elaine Brady and get some sense as to, you know, how fast this needs to be done, since frankly, we're in the middle of winter.
Right.
I don't think we have to worry about grass growth that much. So
Yeah,
get a little
exactly.
bit more time. we
And
might-
wait till the January meeting
Yeah,
for a second.
and, you know, but you know, my sense is the way this board operates is they will defer to council as to what is or is not necessary.
But I think it's important that some of that when you present these items, that you make very clear, this is from the Bylaws and Resolutions Committee. This is not Steve Jenkins,
Right.
right? So if they reject it, or if they choose to not take action or take it seriously, that's on us, right? That is their rejection of our attempt to help them. Because quite frankly, for me, that makes a difference. Because if we're going to spend hours and hours and hours and hours in here
We're one of the.
working on
committees that
stuff
meets as
so
long
that they
as we
can
do.
talk about it for 5 minutes
Yeah.
and then reject it, then I don't know why we even have a Bylaws and Resolutions Committee.
Amen.
I don't know what we're doing here. So if they're going to talk about something for 5 minutes that we talk about for hours
Right.
and then blow it off, then we just do away with this. We can all go back to our lives and go cut our grass.
Yes.
Maybe,
Maybe
maybe it'd be good.
We
Bruce,
move
watch
right here
video.
during our meetings, remember?
Take some time to look at the concerns. They were well documented in this meeting.
I think it should
Bruce
be like,
looked at
in general, the Bylaws and Resolutions Committee has a concern about resolutions that are being modified without their input. Number one. Number two, they have some specific concerns with M04 that are debatable. And that maybe some additional time needs to be spent reviewing.
I mean,
Okay.
I understand.
Okay, so it is 3:24. We are going to work on trying to finish this up here. So of the three remaining topics under new business, we have C01, which is Committee General, B08, which is Director of Ethics and Conduct, B09, Records Retention.
And I think those can be discussed under the
the
governing
governance
document. Yeah, yeah.
So we're gonna scoot down to the governance document review then. So floor is yours, Keith.
So the first thing you may notice is a bunch of the yellow went away on the first page. So I did go back into the book of resolutions. So those items that had not been posted, they've now been posted. So I updated the dates. I did away with the yellow.
Okay.
Let's see. So B08, I recommend that we ask our liaison to ask the board to make a decision about this. Yes, no, something. You're doing it or you're not doing it, so that we can, I mean, otherwise we're gonna have to apply our same rule to the board. You haven't said anything in 30 days, 60 days, so we're gonna consider it dead or reviewed or whatever. So,
Well, just to be clear, my understanding, and Jim, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that B08 has been, again, repealed, rescinded, whatever term you want to use. It does not exist, in part because there was maybe that's not fair. Last time it was debated, which is, I think, before I got on the board, there was a lot of concern about the enforcement of the language in B08, and
Mhm.
and for that
True.
reason, it's lying fallow, for lack of a better term.
well,
So there is one provision in B08 that I've started to tickle with to see if I can get added in. So I guess I would like to put that off for the next meeting, see if I can come up with something that makes sense.
well, our history on it was, it had a first reading with the old board. And then there was a lot of discussion.
Yes.
But then that discussion ran up against the election of the new
Red tape,
board. So it was decided to be tabled until the new board came along.
Right.
So now all we want to know is from the new board, are you going to continue with this? Are you going to cancel it? What are you going to do with it? Because the old board hadn't canceled it.
Right, which also.
It was canceled on 6/16.
Yeah, which means we have to go back to a first reading.
Right.
And so all I'm saying is, let me see if I can put something together for a first reading. I'll bring it back to this
You
committee
talking about B08?
next month.
Huh?
B08?
Yeah, it was.
The resolution was deleted by the
There was,
board.
there was the motion in.
Oh, yeah,
the July board
2021.
meeting.
Yeah,
The
And then there was a
motion-
first reading in 23.
they're trying to bring it back.
Right.
Uh,
And so then they tabled it until the new board came
Yeah,
along.
yes.
We don't care. I mean,
No,
if you don't want to bring it back, don't bring it back. Just tell us.
Right.
You know, we'll scratch it off the list or we'll mark it down as, well, I guess your point is that theoretically it's deleted or rescinded the word.
There is no as I understand the situation. This goes back last year.
yeah,
Went back and forth with Doug Parks about this. There is no B08 right now, according to what he said to me.
right.
We reconstructed B08 which is what was tabled at the July board meeting because of the election that was coming up next month, which means that we begin anew with a new first reading. And all I'm saying is there's one provision that I need to try to, and I've been playing with this in a couple of different drafts. I'm not satisfied yet with the language. Let me see if I can put something together. I will bring it back to the committee next month.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm with you on that. So for our purposes for tracking, as you said, according to the book of resolutions, it was rescinded
Right.
2021.
Yeah.
So I could just delete all this discussion that's in this block. And if something comes back, then
Yeah.
we'll start a new discussion.
I just.
Okay.
It died.
All right, we'll do that.
Okay.
We'll do that. Okay, roger that.
That was my.
So B09, same thing, you know, the question was, it's gonna be tabled for the new board. The new president may not want to continue with this, because this B09 was the old president's,
My understanding, no one has raised this with me. Unless something comes up, and I think I said this at one of either last month or the month before last, I see record retention B09 as a dead letter.
and since it's not in the book of resolutions, B09 does not exist.
Yes, right.
We can delete this off the tracker.
Yeah. So unless someone,
And if it comes back, it comes back.
the issue was, as Laura will remember, is how, we treat all.
We don't set
Importantly,
You
or
don't
we
set policy.
more discretion to the committee chairs and the committees how to conduct
And how long?
and say their business. Yeah, and.
Yeah.
You know, we never got an answer. It never came up. And
That's fine, just for our purposes, for what, we'll just kill them.
For our case.
Yeah,
I
is it even appear in there?
No, it's not in there at all.
We
Yeah,
record
I
our
drop it.
meetings, and we have a lot of content that it's very helpful to be able to go back and rewatch. And so I wouldn't want it just, deleted after 60 days, because what happens if it comes back up within 6 months? And now we don't have a reference point because you erased our meeting, you know what I mean? So,
It's been there since January last year.
We'll just move on.
all right.
C1,
Mhm.
I think we just agreed to just put it off until the next meeting.
Where-
Yeah. C3 is now overdue. That's the Budget and Finance Committee's resolution. It was due at the end of last month. And I don't think that was one of the ones
No.
that you included in your notifications. So you'll notify
I'm gonna
them?
contact Doug. It's the new chair.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we didn't include that one in the original
Okay.
list of Cs.
Let's see, C07, no response, and we decided since that was September, we're going to consider review.
And reset the review date
Review. No response, review.
and then a new schedule.
Same thing for C10, right?
Yep.
Same thing for C12 and C13.
The only one was C10 was that he acknowledged the original email but has not gotten back saying they've met and this is.
Well, if he acknowledged it, we'll leave it. I mean, if he at least responded to
Yeah.
you, we'll
So
leave it
for that
open.
one, I think you could leave.
We'll leave that one
um,
open.
At least till the January meeting.
Yeah.
And then we can either, count it done.
It's your call, but I would make a note on the ones that just basically no reply, new review date established.
Yeah,
So we have-
just like it says in there.
Okay, right.
I'm gonna, just like it says, that's exactly what I'm gonna do.
Right, yeah, that was all. I just was the audit trail.
Yep, no, you're right. So what about C12 and C13? Same thing?
They have not responded.
I did the
And
same.
what, they were both October, so they're way overdue. So
Yeah.
we'll do the same thing with them,
I
review.
would say.
no response?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll use that language. It's in our procedures.
I have
Right.
noticed that the recreation and parks lady shows up to those work group meetings, so I could always ask her there, but as far as emails, she's not responded. So,
Okay. So, we get into the Fs now. So I'm gonna add F to our track, F5 to our track there because, as a rescinded,
right.
resolution, just
Have it
so we
on.
keep our numbers straight.
Mhm.
And then under the XX or potential 06, I'm gonna put in there that we're sending back a recommendation. Our recommendation is that it not be a resolution,
Right.
but if it is, it's for their action. Um, M2 amenities policy, we're still waiting for the GM's manual that he's creating. I don't know if they ever talked about that.
I'm not sure what the status of that is, but it's
Let's
starting
see.
at Pollock stuff.
So M4, maintenance of lots, our board liaison is going to approach the board with concerns. M6 elections, that's not due yet. I just noted that you contacted them. So search committee is the only other one. That you were gonna poke the board on, see what they wanted to do about
Well,
it.
I said,
And Jill and
I
I,
never got an answer. I sent an email
See, director.
2 months or so ago, and I have gotten no responses. I mean, I can.
it's not overdue, it's just a concern because it conflicts with other
I think,
issues, so.
in all honesty, I think in part, issue with the search committee will be dependent to some degree on what the elections committee comes up with,
Right,
and in turn, and whether or not it requires a vote on amending our bylaws and other considerations. And on that basis, I'm willing to sort of sit and wait. But if the committee wants me to do something,
the problem is we're getting into that exact same time frame.
yeah, I know, and
We're
I.
getting up against that exact same
That problem
deadline.
has been raised before. I'm not sure what to do about it, but yes, I understand the problem.
I want to compliment you two guys. This is the best little tracker in the world, and it certainly makes clear what we are or are not doing.
But Bob came up with this.
Well,
Yeah, I just inherited it, but Bob's the one that developed it.
It's impressive. This is 1, 2, 3, 4.
All right, so,
Anyway.
um, last thing on here is our next meeting is Friday, January 12th. Again, it will be a hybrid meeting, 1 to 3. However, I will make the clarification since we're moving into more winter, January and February. If there's inclement weather and we should happen to get out here snow or anything that would prohibit us having the in-person option, we'll make sure that everybody knows if it's going to be just all virtual for that meeting. Okay, as long as the internet doesn't go out, we could still have a meeting. But I just like to preface that, since we're moving into, everybody keeps saying there's going to be more snow. So I'm just saying.
I'm gonna miss you.
Oh,
No,
that's right.
I'll be
Are you
here.
traveling
I'll be
again?
here for January. February, I'm gonna be in Hawaii. And the time zone won't work.
Well, you're only allowed to come back if you're
Taking a
doing the
month.
warm weather.
One time to
Hawaii.
carry your bags for you.
I'm leaving
Okay.
next week for Florida.
So-
Get back
Anyone
in time
opposed
for a
to
meeting.
3:36?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor?
I
Thank you.
Aye.
All right, and
Augie.
as one final comment, I need to thank Steve and Keith And I can't tell, is Augie, are you wearing anything holiday-ish?
Sorry, I rushed into this.
I thought you said you had a holiday hoodie
But
on or something.
I want to thank you all for those who participated. Yep, I got my lights blinking now for you.
Yeah.
So, but have a wonderful holiday season for the end of December, and I will see you next year in 2024. All right?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.